OM Ships International is a non-denominational Christian organization dedicated to bringing knowledge, help, and hope to the people of the world. Since 1970, our vessels have welcomed more than 45 million visitors up the gangways in over 150 different countries and territories. For many, a visit to one of our ships is the first time they've ever had access to good quality literature at a price that they can afford. And this attraction often brings thousands of visitors to the ship each day. Our current ship, Logos Hope, features the world's largest floating book fair, and with over 5,000 titles of Christian, educational, and children's books, there's something for the whole family. Many people without access to education have learned vital skills and have been able to enhance their lives through a purchase from the onboard book fair. While in port, the crew also come alongside the people of the country in practical ways, providing water purifiers, eyeglasses, library projects, and more in an effort to share the love of God in a tangible way. God has used books from the OM Ships ministry and the practical service of Logos Hope's crew to impact countless lives for His glory.
Since we began in 1970, OM's ship ministry has operated 4 different ships, welcomed over 45 million people on board, distributed over 70 million portions of scripture, made 1,500 visits to 500 cities and 150 countries, trained more than 10,000 people for future life and service, partnered with over 60,000 churches, hosted more than 6 million people for onboard events, greeted 250,000 children visiting the ship each year, distributed over 40 million books, worked with more than 40,000 local port volunteers, and seen millions encounter Him.
Getting the call in March 12th. That was the day that we got the call. Guess what? The world is changing, and that for us is when the pandemic started, when we had to close the door, and that's when Logos Hope changed dramatically. We went into a form of lockdown, a form of kind of quarantine. You all know about that. But here we're on a ship with 420 crew members. How do you do that on a ship? So it was a time of great change for us. But I want to tell you, it didn't slow us down. We went into what we call a building together in the Spirit. It was a great time of ministry where we came together as a family. We came together as crew members, and we changed things up. We did a cross-divisional kind of swap departments. Some of the people that worked in the deck department when it worked in the engine room, or the engine room when it worked washing dishes. It was just a cross-divisional change. We also engaged in ministry courses. Every single crew member had actually gone through the Kairos program by the end of this. then I also remember we got the call that we're moving. The ship is moving. We're going to another country. We're going to Bahamas. Why Abaco, Bahamas? Great question. Well, can I tell you? Abaco, Bahamas actually got hit by one of the worst hurricanes ever, Hurricane Dorian. And we were invited to partner with another ministry, come alongside to take our crew members off the ship and go and assist with whatever we could. Over 700 people have been fitted with free eyeglasses. I know that several hundred people have gone through our dental care ministry, so they've been able to come and get dental work done. As well, we had teams going out every week to go do construction, to help with putting roofs on, putting shingles on. So I want to tell you from my side, from the ship's company, we all were challenged in an amazing way. We did not expect to be able to do that, but we did. God knew what was coming and that He really had it for us to actually step into His world and go, okay, Lord, this is what you have for us. This is what we're going to do. And that's what we did on board Logos Hope. I would like to say in closing, thank you very much. There are people listening to this who you have been prayer partners for not just months and weeks and years, but for decades. I also want to thank those of you who are financial partners with us. Really, without your donation, without your financial assistance at such a time as this, we could not continue on. So we are very grateful. So on behalf of myself, my leaders, all the ship's company, we want to say thank you and special blessings to you and your families.
A big welcome to the 4th live stream as we celebrate 50 years OM Ships. Wonderful to have you online with us. Great, and a welcome here out of rainy Mosbach.
Yes, and today we especially want to focus on the Logos Hope and the ministry she has done since 2009. Isn't that exciting?
Absolutely.
But actually, you know what? Jean is celebrating something else today.
Yeah, 14 years ago in Kiel, waiting for the Logos Hope to come. Actually, our 4th child, Yannick, was born, so we celebrate back home Yannick's birth. When we think back, very soon Logos Hope came and we moved over to Logos Hope with the whole community. And it tells us that the Logos Hope already has a couple of years on her back, and that's what we're going to celebrate today.
And it's a privilege today to serve you and to lead you through the program. And this is Jean Walser, in case you haven't recognized him. He's married with 4 kids and he's from Switzerland, and he has served on the Logos Hope from 2004 till 2005 and from 2007 till 2012.
And I'm pleased to do MC together this afternoon with another Swissie. So we have 2 Swissies on the call. We try to do some English, to speak some English that you understand. That's Irene Julif. Irene joined the ship's ministry in '96 on the Logos 2, found her husband on Logos 2. They are part of the journey with us, and they have been on Logos Hope 2013 and 15 serving on board.
Yeah.
We look back a little bit back, and then we take just some snapshots of the Logos Hope ministry. But of course, the Logos Hope started with a vision after Logos 2 and Doulos were sailing already a couple of years, and we want to watch the video. Now is the hour that was made before the Logos Hope was purchased, and after that we hear an interview with Bernd Gülker, the CEO at that time, and the man really that led into this project and in that ministry at that point of time. So video, we go. Now is the hour.
It was in a bookshop in Bolton, Lancashire, that a little group of us were sort of just talking, and the idea came up about a ship, and it just registered. We've been praying for quite a while now for a ship. We had some money, and I sent a memo out. I believe now is the hour. I said this is God's ship.
People flocked to the ship. Before long, we realized Here we had something that was more than we had bargained for.
We just sense we've got to get another ship. We've got to get a bigger ship, which came to be the ship Doulos.
Over 30 years ago, there was that watchword, now is the hour.
And now we feel the time has come to take a bigger step.
The hour to replace Logos 2.
They're like a flagship for the world Christian community.
There are so many people from different nationalities, different cultures, all wanting to serve the Lord.
I think it's an amazing thing that you've got a kind of mobile unit that can go and help and serve in different places around the world.
Beautiful. We are into missions, we're into taking the gospel to all nations.
Strategic in terms of encouraging people to a worldwide mission vision.
Welcome to the Doulos.
And one of our goals is to go around the world and mobilize Christians into world evangelization.
What's fantastic about Operation Mobilization is it really lives out its name. It does mobilize thousands and thousands and thousands of people.
This international community sailing around the world, it attracts attention both amongst the church and amongst non-Christians.
Tens of thousands of people coming on board the ship in West Africa, in India, in Korea just recently.
We were on the streets in Ghana showing the Jesus film, and about 1,500 people were watching the film with us there. And at the end, about 200 or 300 people were raising their hands and praying to accept salvation.
We had 82,000 people visiting in Lebanon, and everybody was on crowd control.
It doesn't matter which country, it's just that they need God.
I looked outside the porthole and I saw maybe what was 60 children waiting to come on board to see the children's program or the schools program. And I suddenly realized that these children haven't grown up knowing about Jesus.
When we went to Myanmar, in Yangon, and we worked with a number of different orphanages there.
Sailing up the river into the heart of Shanghai, China, up the Yangtze, and just seeing God open a door for ministry that we could hardly believe possible.
A huge attraction is obviously the books.
Logos is constantly putting great books into people's hands, and great books into people's hands in cultures where they don't get an opportunity to absorb ideas and read, so they see a book for what it's worth.
And after 30 years of distribution and the demands, we've seen just how people grab a hold of the literature, they swamp to the ship.
There are in fact about 10 different major ministries based on this ship. It's all going on at once.
The ships have really helped local Christians in many difficult countries of the world to get a vision for the world and also to get active in evangelism themselves.
I remember last year in Liberia we had 4 pastors' conferences in 4 days. Some of them walked for 12 to 16 hours out of the mountains down just to hear the word of God.
Logos is a fantastic idea and has made a huge impact, a much bigger impact on the church in lots of places around the world than perhaps anyone can objectively measure.
And I really think it has enriched my life like nothing else.
We get a regular stream of students going into longer-term mission who have served previously on ships and caught their vision through that.
The only way that you can explain OM's ships ministries, and indeed the whole phenomenon of OM as a whole, I think is through the providence of God.
To play just a small part in that is just my greatest privilege, and I'm really so excited about the ship ministry.
We had no idea 30 years ago when we sailed up the Thames, we had no idea that 30 years later we could look back and see 10,000 people that have sailed on those ships and been trained in mission and Christian service.
Every year we have over 1 million people that are visiting the ships, and every one of those people is having some contact with the gospel, but many of them are leaving the ship really without any further contact with us.
We want to be able to minister to everybody who comes up this gangway, if that is possible. And we would need more space for that and more crew.
And we really want to see an even greater impact in the lives of people.
And so we made the decision with confidence in our hearts that this is the way forward, that Logos 2 needs to be replaced with a more suitable ship.
We're hoping to spend maybe 4 or 5 million to buy a ship that would cost 40 million to build.
The ship's impact is in some ways limited to the number of personnel and the number of resources and the amount of space that you can take with you.
We could have another room where we could show the Jesus video, another room where we could counsel people.
Have conversations one-on-one and to really make a bigger impact in people's lives.
And we're given so many opportunities that we just have to turn down.
Simply because we don't have the space and we don't have the personnel on board.
And if you think there's a lot of big money around OM so the checks are just going to be easily written out to buy another ship, you are in cloud cuckoo land. It is going to be rough. It is going to be tough.
We need the presence of God with us. And we need the encouragement of the people of God with us.
And that's why I believe that Logos and the ships project needs to grow. There's just so much more scope.
And I would encourage anybody, if they're able, to give their pennies, their pounds, their millions to enable this work to continue.
If every individual Christian was doing his or her whack in terms of contributing financially to the work of the kingdom, there would be a surplus of finances.
It just makes sense to do the whole thing bigger and better because the model is actually seen to work.
This ship ministry has always had big value for money. That's why some people like to give to us. And we believe we're going to get a phenomenal bargain on an older ship, do a lot of the work ourselves, together with others, to refurbish it, and we are then going to have a powerful tool to be used in reaching the world with the gospel.
Well, hello there, and I hope you enjoyed that short video. Now is the hour that we just looked at, and it's my privilege today to have the man with us that comes up a lot in that video, and that's the former CEO of OM Ships at the time of getting the Logos Hope into ministry, and that's Bent Gülker. Bent, welcome to you. I'm sure there's many people on this call right now that know you and Margaret. Just tell us a little bit. It's been a number of years since you've left the leadership of OM Ships. What have you been doing in that time since you left OM?
Well, it's certainly been a few years since we left. We left in 2009, and at that time we moved to Berlin because I was invited to take the leadership of the German branch of what is Samaritan's Purse. It was then known by another name here. And for 9 to 10 years, I led that work. At the same time, became involved in much of what is happening in Berlin. So it was another worldwide ministry that we became involved in. And a couple of years ago, I ended my official involvement, and since then have been involved with some other ministries, advising them and being on their boards and helping them to grow as well. So we still have a full life. And we enjoy living in this part of the world. We just live outside of Berlin and enjoy all that Berlin has to offer and all that Brandenburg has to offer with many lakes and many bike paths.
Wow, great. Well, it must have been pretty emotional for you watching that clip. Now is the hour. I wanted to ask you just right at the beginning, really, just give us an insight. Take us back, probably, I guess, 2 decades now almost, to the journey to actually begin to what would ultimately be getting the Logos Hope.
From my point of perspective, there was no special experience or supernatural revelation at the beginning of this story. It rather was a process of much prayer, reflection, and discussion. And this resulted in our vision being refocused and reshaped. And that actually was the beginning of the Logos Hope project. An idea that was discussed in the 80s, by the way, was couldn't we extend the Logos, sort of put in another middle section in order to create more space. So there were all sorts of crazy ideas going on. we often were not really well equipped to minister to the people in the ports that we visited because the crowds were so big. The greatest advantage of the ship ministry was that ships are mobile. They were capable of drawing up to 1 million or more than 1 million visitors per year. And for us, the question was, are we using the ministry opportunities that God has given us to the best we can? As part of this process, we commissioned an extensive research project worldwide. We wanted to find out answers to the question, is the ship ministry still a valid ministry today? This research was conducted by David Greenlee, who spent many months interviewing people, and he came back with extremely helpful and important insight. It highlighted the uniqueness of the ships as we knew it. People everywhere experienced the ships as a place where the Christian message became visible and real, and in many places the ships brought, as we saw in the video clip as well, brought unity and encouragement. And David's conclusion was, if the ship ministry didn't exist, it would have to be invented.
Ben, that's fascinating to hear that. You're, of course, somebody that's lived through a lot of this history, right from, as you were just saying, just the very seeds of these ideas that go back many, many decades. What are for you some of the absolute highlights that just stick out in your minds? I know there are so many of them, obviously, but just tell us a few of them for a moment.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I don't want to start with specifics, but with a very general highlight. And I think the most general, biggest highlight was that looking back, we witnessed God at work. And we experienced that God invited us to join him in doing his work. For me, that was an incredible highlight to realize that. I remember visiting the Logos 2 in the Caribbean, excuse me, and taking a walk with the then director, Otni Jensen. And we had just been appointed, I think the second time, to the Nerona. And I shared with Otni Jensen, who was from the Faroe Islands, that this was the case. And I told him that somehow in my heart, there was a story that wouldn't go away in my mind as well. It was the story of Jesus telling his disciples to go to the man in the city and say, untie that donkey, the Lord needs it. And Otni Jensen got very excited about it and wanted to communicate to the chairman of the Smyrna line, whom he knew personally. Negotiating then later on with Smyrna line was an experience in itself. I remember after the first bid that we did, we weren't accepted, and then they called us. And they called me on my mobile, and they said, we are here together as a board, and we want to offer the ship to you, and we want to know, do you want to buy the ship? And so I said, well, next Monday, we have a day of prayer, OM worldwide. All of the OM fields will join in, and we want to hear from God. Is this what God wants us to do? And at the end of the day, we can sign if we all agree. Later, I heard that not everybody on the board there was a believer in Jesus, and it was the strangest business meeting I think they ever had in selling that ship. So that was a highlight. Last but not least, the thousands and thousands of people who got involved, whether it's volunteers, whether it's donors, leaders, all of them stepped out in faith, and each individual had their own story to tell of how they experienced God in this entire phase. So many highlights, so many wonderful things. On a very personal level, I had the privilege of untying the donkey, of letting go of the last rope in Køge when the Logos Hope sailed into ministry. That was special, especially since it started to some extent off with the story of the donkey.
So powerful to hear these things. As you reflect back, what is some of the learning that you took away from that particular chapter, that particular season in your life?
I'm too far removed from the ship ministry to say, boy, I wish they would do this, would do that. That's not my place anyway. We rejoice in what God has done for us and where God has led us. But for me, I think then as now, one of the most important things, and that would be point number one, is vision. It is my personal experience that a ministry needs a clear, unified vision. That means asking questions and finding out what is needed. And then, with much prayer and reflection, formulate a vision, communicate it, and follow it together. The second that has really been etched into my life has to do with expectations. I've been in touch with many Christian ministries, and many ministries sometimes find it hard to know how to deal with expectations. It's vitally important to clarify expectations and decide how to deal with them. Ask the question, are the expectations legitimate or are they not? I've often found that it is counterproductive if individual expectations publicly conflict with the agreed and communicated expectations of a ministry. And it's often here, at this very point, that unity fails. The third aspect that I've thought and talked a lot about is problems. We usually call the difference between the way things are and the way we believe they ought to be a problem. The label we give a problem depends on the way we see or imagine things, and compare it to situations that we can relate to. We go back to our past and say, oh yeah, it was similar then and there. This means that the problem that we perceive is primarily subjective and not objective. Often I've been asked to help solve a problem. But the truth is, and I could say much more about this, the truth is many of us prefer a problem, as somebody said, that we can't solve to a way forward we don't like. So that's the third, problems. The fourth that I've learned much about, and I think I've really grown a lot in as well over these last 10 years, is the whole area of accountability. Real accountability needs clarity, great clarity. And at times we shy away from that clarity. And I have shied away at times from that clarity. It's vital that also in Christian ministry, authority and responsibility go together. They're two sides of the same coin. Leaders need to clarify this for those accountable to them. Authority without the corresponding responsibility easily leads to abuse of power. Responsibility without the corresponding authority usually leads to powerlessness. We are accountable for the responsibility given to us, but the authority, the permission and ability to fulfill it has to go along with it. There are many other lessons I've learned, but the final one, point number 5, is all glory goes to God. In the end, it's not about what we accomplished, but whether our service has focused on increasing the glory of God here on earth. Jesus said in Luke 17, so you also, when you have done everything you were told to do, should say, we are unworthy servants. We have only done our duty. And for me, that has been great to have that perspective. It's helped me through many difficult situations. It's helped me through many issues where I wondered, is this right? Is this wrong? And I hope I can go forward in that way. And again, thank you for being able to share.
Ben, it's been wonderful. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. We wish you the Lord's blessing, and hopefully we'll be able to meet up with you again at some point in the future. Have a good time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thanks again, and God bless.
Well, we do apologize for the sound on YouTube. If you haven't heard it yet, and would like to revisit at the end, we upload the full version, hopefully with sound then. But wow, that was great what Bernd has to share, and the interview is a bit longer, and if you would like to listen to the whole interview, we also will upload a link at the end of this broadcast. It's great to have people from all over the world with us, watching and celebrating with us, especially the 19th February 2009. What happened then, John?
This was a day we were all waiting, praying and working for, and that's where Logos Hope set sail into ministry. We left Kø in Denmark.
Let's watch the Maiden voyage.
This is a great day for OM Ships. We're so grateful to many around the world, partners who have helped, provided time, energy, finances. So thankful to many in the OM family who have helped facilitate that this now is a possibility. And we now look forward to great ministry in the years ahead with this ship as she brings knowledge, help and hope to many ports around the world. Thank you again for your involvement.
These are very exciting days for the Logos Hope. After 5 years of hard work and many people that helped us to get the ship where we are at today, we are now ready that we can sail from port to port. We have the PSSC in hand, we can sail into ministry as we call it, and that's thanks to many people that have been working on board. But I also need to say that the work is not quite finished. We still have the Hope Theatre as one of the areas that needs to be completed. The visitor experience deck still needs a lot of work, and as well down in the engine room and in many other areas. We have many projects that are still on our job list, and to continue to look for people that are helping us, but as well we need to pray and look for the finances that we can complete these projects.
As the Logos Hope sails out of Denmark, we are excited and enthusiastic about future possibilities with this ship. We look forward to open the doors to welcome people from around the world. We want to thank partners who have stood with us over the years in this project to bring us to this special moment in time. We pray and we hope that everyone who visits will have a personal and unique experience of God's love on the Logos Hope.
It's great to have Mike and Hey joining us now in this section online. Mike, of course, was the director during the Logos Hope project, like from 2006 onwards till the first couple of months in 2009. And we invited them into this live stream because we would like to hear from them how their season was. Great to see you, Mike and Anne.
Hello.
Joining us from Australia. Traveling is not so straightforward right now, but great that you can be with us online, and wonderful to see you always. As you were leading the Logos Hope community during this season of the outfit work and in the first couple of months in ministry, of course it was a timeline that was kind of moved like the carrot on the stick in front of the donkey, a bit further and better further. What are your reflections, your biggest memory? What do you think about when you think of this season?
Version of you and myself was very encouraging. But I really think of what Bernd said to us when we first arrived, that this will be a place of beautiful color. And I kept in my heart, and I think many of us kept this, John, I know you did, that this ship will have a greater capacity for people to experience the goodness of God, the good news of Jesus, with the extended book fair, the Journey to Life, the cafe, the theatre, the Logos Lounge conferences, the dining room, a greater capacity for any visitor. Secondly, that it would be a greater capacity for vibrancy in the community, because we just create a bit more space and more families and just life and a library and things like that. We had this in our heart as we went through that time. And then the third thing would be for partners to be able to come and be involved practically, hands-on, on board with us, both global and local partners. I think that vision sticks in my heart as I think about our walking through Tregear with 30, and then to Kiel, and then to Denmark. I'm not going to pronounce different names, but God at work in ordinary people. With whatever delays we had, we saw God at work.
Yeah. Good. Tell us, Anne first, and then Mike, what was the biggest challenge you were facing during this time? The first time ministry, you know, it has not happened before. It's a new ship, new ministry. What was the challenges?
I think for me, the challenge was being on board, but not on board, living on shore with Esther, our youngest daughter, and very limited in what we could do on board. That affected me, because everyone was working so hard. You know, our young people, after they'd worked on the ship, they had to walk through the streets of Croatia, and Croatians, my goodness, when they go out, they're immaculate in their dress and their appearance, and there was our young people walking to the streets of Croatia with oil and grease and overalls, and after a while we were known as the dirty people because of our appearance. So that for me was challenging, not being able to be more involved in the practical side of the ship. And then we had people come in and go in, and my heart, if you know me, is for people. I don't want anyone to feel that they're not embraced and loved and welcomed. So I struggle with people feeling a little bit lost in the midst of all the practical work.
And then you, Mike, back into
Yeah,
the
I think the
ministry.
delay certainly impacted all of us on board, and trying to understand that, and especially when people arrived and had come to change the world.
Yeah.
But then we had to learn God is changing us and preparing us for what he wants us to be in the future. And I remember one day in Denmark walking out and had this clear sense. You know, on one side of life we have frustration, on the other side we have failure. But in the middle, God is faithful. You just stay close to him. And that was just a moment in my own experience on board, that there's something special in all of this, with all this delay, that God is preparing us for something greater than we had experienced in the past.
Thank you. Yes, God was at work and is at work. We sailed into ministry in 2009. What was your most encouragement season there, or what stood out? I know that you always have 1,000 stories. Maybe just one or two.
Just you don't want.
Well, I'll ask Anne to start, and then you don't get the 1,000 stories.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was all ministry. Croatia was ministry. We did a lot of Bible study and follow up. It was beautiful. Kiel, that also was amazing. But for me, the highlight in ministry obviously was London. That's where I grew up, and we never expected that there would be so many people visiting the ship. Thousands of people came to the ship, and I felt like we knew half of them. So we had people in the lounge, we had people in the dining room, we had people in the cabin, and we're thinking, how do we coordinate all of this? And we had a small team from our church, actually quite a big team from Northwest London, came to visit the ship. Sorry, I'm in India now. Came to visit the ship, and they brought with them Hindus and Muslims, and they were so impressed with the ship. But if you know Asian, they brought their food, and we sat on the floor in the main lounge in front of everyone, and we were eating, sitting on the floor with our fingers. It was beautiful. They made themselves completely at home. And then the most important impact ministry had on me was my family. My mum and one of my sisters had never visited. We've been with OM over 40 years, had never visited us in any form in missions. And they actually came to the ship in London for the first time. Mum wasn't a Christian. My sister wasn't a Christian. And the ship was so busy. My mum is quite introverted. And I thought, she is going to hate this, all these people. And we had to eat in the dining room. And Heather Packwood met my mum at the reception. And she went up and she embraced my mum. And she said, "Hello, Mum, welcome to the ship." And for a West Indian mother, that melted her heart. It touched her so deeply. Then we took her back into our cabin to get her away from the crowd so she could have some peace and quiet. And then she looked at both of us and she said, "There is such peace and beauty on this ship." And we were in shock, really, because it was so packed, so crowded, so noisy. But God started ministering to my mum. And as we sailed to Cork, she called us and shared with us how God, had really ministered to her. She didn't use that word, but that's the sense we had. And we believe transformation started taking place in her life from that moment.
Wow.
And that time was a very vibrant, 12 Christian leaders had come to visit us in Holland. And that's the strength of that partnership, the filling the theatre and the conference centre and the dining room. Actually, on that particular day, I did not feel any peace. But Anne's mum got the peace.
Yeah, that's right.
And also on that day, she said, "This is the most friendly place I've ever been in."
Wow. Yeah.
And just that, the witness of the presence of God in people.
Yeah.
Was so strong.
Yeah.
In one of the busiest places where we're all just learning to use this huge vessel that's just being shaped.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Thank you.
incredible. Yeah. What greater story than God is using the ship and ministering to people. Wow.
Amen.
Thank you so much that we could hear from you, that you have joined us. And thank you also for your service that you have done with us on Logos Hope.
You need to write a book with the other 999 stories.
Yes, exactly.
And just keep the 3 words in mind before you go. It's about friendship, it's about family, and it's about the faithfulness of God.
Amen.
That's culture.
Absolutely.
Thank
Great.
you, mate. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, Jan,
Thank you.
and Mike was the first director on the Logos Hope, but then you just took over from him. And tell us a little bit, what was sticking out for you during your 3 years? 3 years you were the director, right? So,
of many things. I count it a privilege to have been on that journey with the Logos Hope and then sailing, visiting many ports. And of course, it was still a tool that we tried to get used to, steep learning curves, fantastic leadership team, a fantastic community, and just seeing God at work, His faithfulness. I took over directorship in the Caribbean, and very similar to the Logos Hope right now. Then we sailed from the Caribbean over to Africa, which was a new season of ministry, and probably one of the days that stuck out is for me kind of this typical ship's life in Liberia. On a morning, we had the president, Madam Sirleaf Johnson, the Iron Lady of Liberia, amazing lady. We had her visiting the ship, and with police and security and all of that stuff. And it's always an amazing and humbling privilege to meet these type of people and show them around and have good and deep conversations. And on that same afternoon, I went actually together with my son to an orphanage for an overnight team, where we connected with a complete different range of people, but as well there, it's people. And I think Logos Hope is meeting people, is meeting with people, and it's God using us normal people, average people, but His love in us, connecting with people and opportunities that we have.
Yeah.
Privileged to be part of that.
That is really, really amazing. Great.
So we touched already a little bit on Africa. Maybe we give you a little bit more of impressions of Africa a couple of years later. Logos Hope in Madagascar in 2016, and we just want to show a couple of pictures or a short video of that visit.
Salam Atupko. My name is Jan. Welcome to Tomasina, Madagascar. Our time in Madagascar was memorable from the start. Upon arrival, Logos Hope crew members were happily surprised to be welcomed not only by people on the quayside, but also by the crew of Africa Mercy and other vessels. Crew members also celebrated Christmas and New Year's on board for the first time since the Power Project. In the midst of Christmas celebrations, Monsieur Ramanana Barthelemy Samuel, representative of the Chief of Region, Atsianana, came on board to officially open the book fair to the public. Logos Hope partnered with local believers to impact the lives of Malagasy people in various ways. Some teams went door to door, sharing the gospel with people in remote areas, while others went to local prison to do programs for the inmates. Water purifiers and shoe donations were given out to those in need, and a large project was carried out to refurbish the public library of Tomasina, from renovations to organizing and adding on to their collections of books. We also had an event on board to raise awareness of the situation in southern Madagascar, where there's a severe drought and famine. 12 villagers traveled through rough roads for 3 days from the region of Androy to come to Logos Hope and mobilize people for the mission in southern Madagascar. In every port, we have local volunteers come on board, help with translating, and also to connect with visitors in the book fair. While they gain a unique experience in each department they work in, they also receive training in the area of missions through a special program on board.
Hello, my name is Anastasia. I'm from Ukraine, and on the ship I work as coordinator of DEEP volunteer program. So DEEP stands for discipleship, exposure to missions, expression of love, and practical work. And through this program, Ship's ministry wants to influence local believers in every port we visit, to motivate them for missions, to inspire them to look for God-given purpose in their life, and also to equip them in some ministry skills, so they can be a blessing in their own country, in their own church, and to any other place where God will call them.
The DEEP volunteer program helps motivate local believers to step out of their comfort zone and live out what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Mira's time serving as a volunteer inspired her to do great things in her own country.
Serving people is easy for me because I love to serve people, but on board it's not easy work. And imagine that I need God all times. Yeah. After the ship, I must mobilize my church if there is no one, because we are many from our church here, but we need to mobilize church, not only church, but the other organization, the other groups of young Christian young youth. So, yeah.
The different ministries that Logos Hope did in Madagascar all work towards the goal of reminding people that being a Christian is more than just about being a fan of Jesus. It's about following Him in every moment of every day. With this mindset, we constantly saw needs provided for and hope restored. Thank you so much for supporting our visit to Madagascar. We could clearly see God's hand at work here. And please continue praying for us as we make our way to mainland Africa.
It's great to have Seelan with us this afternoon as well. Seelan, of course, is from South Africa, joined the Doulos back in '99. Then, long story short, came over with his family in 2010 to the Logos Hope. Served a number of years actually, on Logos Hope, and of course now is the CEO of the ship's ministry, living with his family here in beautiful, rainy Mosbach. Yes. Great, Seelan, to have you here. You were several times with the ships in ministry, with the Logos Hope as well, in Africa with the Logos Hope as well. If you think ship in Africa, what comes to mind? What is an impact story that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, thank you, Jan. Of course, it was very special for me to sail to South Africa with the Logos Hope. South Africa had received the Logos, Doulos, and are very familiar with the ships over the many years, including the heart transplant that took place on Doulos, so quite familiar. So I was the director on board when we sailed in 2016 to South Africa. Of course, I come from Durban, so coming into that home port was always a special joy to meet family and friends and people that you grew up with. And after the official opening, I remember that I had my PA said to me that there's someone that they wanted to meet with you, a journalist from Durban, and I can't remember quite exactly the edition or the newspaper that he was writing for. And so he wanted an interview, and I thought, well, this would be a bit quick, 5 minutes, I could get it done and get on with the other things that I needed to do. But he came, and he was very unfamiliar with our faith. He was very surprised at the ship, and he sat in the dining room with me, and he started to ask questions about me and where I come from and what led me to the ship. But very soon it moved towards the people on board. And why do they come and give off their time? They don't get a salary. They give their skills, their time, and 2 years to come and serve and learn. And there is this sense of joy that he's experienced. So we're sitting in the dining room, and there's lots of people going and coming. And of course, as he glances on the badges, he sees the countries, and he keeps pointing to me. Oh, that person is from Nepal. That person is from Barbados. That person is from Malaysia. So he was quite fascinated that all these nationalities, about 65 nationalities were living on board at that stage, that they could live together, and there was a sense of joy in that community that he experienced. And he kept on asking me again and again, but why is it? He says any university around the world could have all these nationalities, but somehow this ship had a different sense to it, the experience, the atmosphere. And of course, I talked a little bit about my life, of how God came into my life and transformed my life, which is what he did in the life of everyone on board the ship. And I had a very wonderful conversation with him about life and transformation and what happens when God comes into our life to transform us into the person that he wants us to be, so we can live out what he wants us to live out. So that was quite special for me. Of course, he wrote an article on the newspaper that many of the leaders of the pastors, the city, sent to me afterwards, saying that they were very encouraged by this person because he was quite well known in the community. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Seelan. We will hear Seelan a little bit more later in the program again. We try actually this afternoon to give a couple of snapshots of different regions, areas where the ship is at, not necessarily in chronological order, but more kind of different regions. And we now want to watch a clip where the ship was in kind of the Canaries and in the Mediterranean, visiting, of course, some super exciting ports. So we gave back to a video, and then we will see us here again.
For the very first time, Logos Hope had the opportunity to visit countries in the Arab world and experience their unique and welcoming hospitality. A new culture was waiting for the crew, but also many encounters and new friendships. But before Logos Hope entered the Mediterranean, a group of 64 new crew members were getting ready to join in for the next season. They received some training about living on board and showed great enthusiasm as they finally joined the ship. Still in Las Palmas, an international night was organized on shore. The diversity represented on Logos Hope was displayed through song, dance and drama. But each person was also reminded that they are loved and valued.
My mommy and my daddy taught me this.
Mi padre y mi madre me enseñaron esto a mí.
They say, Randy, God is love.
Y simplemente me decían siempre, Randy, Dios es amor.
Crew members continued to share this love in Malta. One evening in Valletta, a team went to a skate park to connect with skaters and BMX bikers.
That evening I met a teenager about 14 years old, and we just started talk about random stuff. We came to a point that we started to talk about his relationship with his mother that was not so good. I invited him to come to the ship, and 2 days later he came and he even brought his mother. After that I brought them to the dining room, I offered a drink to them, and I listened to their stories, I also talked with them, and was really encouraged to me.
Then Tripoli was the first port in an Arabic country for Logos Hope. The Libyan hosts were eager to share their culture on the ship, and visitors loved hearing more about crew members' cultures. Among the more than 130,000 visitors that boarded the ship in Libya, many of them sat in the International Cafe, had a conversation with a crew member, or even wrote in the captain's log, which is a digital logbook for messages on the deck. One person wrote, "I wish that I will have the chance to share with you this kind of life, and to give others what I have received. Thanks a lot for the love and care that you give." On shore, bridges were also built through sport. Different sports teams went out, including the Logos Hope football team. They had the chance to play in a great stadium, and enjoyed connecting with locals in this unique setting. But a highlight for each port in Libya was the international night. In Benghazi especially, visitors showed great interest in what the Logos Hope was offering.
I come to the ship maybe 6 times. This is my 7th.
The ship is very nice and everything is like it on the ship, okay? And big thank for everybody working on this ship and in the crew, okay? And I like it and thank you for this good night. And I hope to see you again.
I was able to relate to at a one-on-one level, and in this time I was able to share with him about the volunteer work that we do on board the ship. He had a really passion, he was very excited to learn about it, and he showed many interest in joining the ship.
Anderson met Tahar on the visitor experience deck, and after inviting him to the international night, his passion had not decreased.
And I admire their work, their volunteer work here on the ship, leaving their home and their jobs and their families just for volunteering for sometimes incredible.
One day here in the cafe, a lot of local kids just came and crowded around me and even asked for my autograph. Instead of putting down my name, I started to write, "Love is patient, love is kind," and so on and so on. And more kids came and read and say, "Wow, this is so beautiful." Then suddenly I remember that in that morning, I just prayed with my friend that God will show the people here that He is love.
In Lebanon, the last country visited in the Mediterranean, even more teams went on shore. One of them went to a refugee camp to help a local organization in distributing home supplies and food for more than 40 families. More packs were prepared for the following 2 months. Logos Hope also worked together with the organization Just for Kids that performed the Christmas story in a very unique and creative way. In the Hope Theatre, more than 6,000 kids had the chance to participate in this event. While the kids enjoyed the story, some crew members were in the organization's offices in Beirut painting their walls. In Ain Dara, a village up in the mountains, another team went to repaint a school.
We hope they can stay all day and night here because they are the best people that can see how they work, how they love, and they are, as I told you, they are the best example I ever seen in my country.
For many crew members, it was their first time in this culture. As they adjusted very quickly, they were able to serve and love people in ways they couldn't have imagined. But as much as they were here for visitors, they will also remember the warmth of the welcome they received and the hospitality of the local people. Maybe it's just a taste of the visit to the Arabian Peninsula that lies ahead of them.
It is so great this afternoon to also have Rodney and Irene Hui with us. Hello, both of you. Hello. Great to see you again. Rodney, you have been with OM since 1975. I don't even want to calculate how many years. And Irene, just slightly less, 1980 you joined. That's a long, long time. But it was so great to serve with you together on Logos Hope. You were the uncle and the auntie, Irene. And Irene, remember we got emails from each other that were supposed to be for you, came to me and vice versa. That was great fun. But tell us a little bit, how was it on board the ship? You as Asian, and then the ship was in the Asian region. How was that for you? But both of you, just share briefly.
Yeah, God has a time for everything. And it was the first time the Logos Hope was coming to Asia. Mm-hmm. But it was building on the visits of the Logos and doulos for many years. So for us, it was a privilege. After we almost arrived at our pre-retirement age, to be invited to serve on the ship. And I think it's a privilege to work with so many young people. I was given a job. I didn't want a job. I wanted a role, but they gave me a job. And I did my job. John was my wonderful director, but he gave me a lot of space to do the ministry behind the job, which was more important. So I was really busy with my wife, hosting people, connecting with people, because in Asia, a lot has to do with relationships. So we have almost 40 years of relationships with donors, with prayer friends, prayer partners, pastors, supporters, ACTSHIP members, VIPs, and we were busy day and night, and the 4 years went very quickly. Yeah.
Irene, you want to say something as well?
She's busier than me.
Yes, I remember.
Yes.
He's my spokesman.
Now, of course, it was a huge privilege to work with you and have you on board. And as much as you had a ministry in Asia outside, and you were hosting, I don't know how many people, and always hosting in a wonderful way, and have been a huge support to me and us as well on board. But you as well had a ministry on board. You were uncle and auntie to many on board. You had an incredible amount of nieces and nephews, and I know especially for the Asian ships community as well, but as well for many more, it was just a blessing to have you on board. How was that for you to have, to be parents to a huge community, specifically as well the Asian community on board?
Yeah, the ship was coming from the West, and so in Asia, we called older people aunties and uncles. It is actually an honorific address, just a show of respect and esteem for the seniors and the older people. So I wanted to educate the ship people. It is not a relationship. I'm not really your uncle biologically, but it's an honorific thing. And very interestingly, the ship, some of them started adjusting to it, and they started calling us uncle and aunties. And even when they go to on shore, meeting with older folks, they will call them uncle and aunties, which is a very nice, very intimate kind of address to us. And of course, on board, we are often more than uncles and aunties. We are like their absentee fathers and mothers, and some of them, are in the ages of our own children. And we miss our children, so we have 400 of them on the ship.
Yes.
We miss their parents, so they have us. So we have kept in touch. Some of it was very good for the parents to know their children were cared for on the ship. And some of their parents were actually ship members, and their children have come on board to serve. So it was really nice to connect that way.
Very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, She was more than an auntie. She was
Yeah,
like a
Irene, just
caring
tell us a little bit from your perspective.
and
How was
everything.
that?
A mom to many.
Well, I think it was just a wonderful privilege to be able to journey with some of them. And some of them would even tell us the struggles that they have, or whether it be on the ship or with their situation back home. So even to today, we still have contact with some of them, and it's really encouraging. Sometimes they just reach out and tell us that they still need some help with this and that, or some advice. We are thankful for the relationships that we have established during those years.
Yeah. When you become uncles and aunties, the relationship doesn't stop when you leave the ship. We are still uncles and aunties all these years.
Very good.
Yeah.
If you look back now, how was the impact the ship had in the Asian region? Maybe Ronnie or something.
Let me first say that the ship gave birth to the bigger organization that I was responsible for. And out of the 20 countries, I would say about 15 countries, our ministry was birthed through the visit of the ship. I am one of the product of the ministry. And so I say with a lot of gratitude. There is one story that I remember, which is a representative of the impact. The ship was in the Philippines, and one of our crew members felt led to speak to this gentleman who was very warm to the ship. And this crew member led this person to the Lord on the first visit. 2 years later, when the ship returned, this gentleman became a committee member of the Logos School. Wow. And not only that, she worked in the volunteers program under Irene.
Wow.
And every day he was in the book fair, in the journey of life, explaining the journey of life, explaining the prodigal son to visitors. And at the end of the visit, he told us that he led 140 people to the Lord Jesus Christ. And that is just one impact of one particular person. How do we measure such things? We can't. But the impact very often has eternal value, eternal perspective. Yeah, and this is happening where the ship has started and birthed the land ministries in Hong Kong, in Singapore, Malaysia, even in Myanmar, Korea. In Myanmar, our land teams are actually reaching out to even more communities right now where the crisis is happening, reaching out with the gospel and the good news and great help to them.
Yeah, that is amazing, really. We will only in heaven really see what impact it had, right? And how many more nephews and nieces you will have there in heaven, right?
And some stories are still being written. You know,
yes, exactly.
It's not finished yet.
It's not finished yet, by no means. Thank you so much, Rodney and Irene. It was a real privilege to have you with us this evening with you and afternoon with us. Yeah, so the ship in Asia, that's a story itself, but then it also went all around Latin America. Let's just watch a video around the time when the ship was in Latin America.
2019 was the 10th anniversary year for OM's largest ship, Logos Hope. 1 million people were drawn to this unique vessel as we continued to make our way around South America, ending up in the Caribbean. Calling in 16 port cities in 6 countries, we were privileged to share knowledge, help, and hope with those from all walks of life, in partnership with various organizations. Our international crew members enjoyed integrating into the relational culture of South America, learning Spanish and Portuguese, sampling food and family hospitality, and using the continent's passion for football to connect through sports outreach. We made new friends as more than 1,500 volunteers from local churches worked alongside the ship's crew over the year, sharing their culture and love for their country, making every day special and each encounter personal for all who visited. Through their experience with us, many of these Latino believers now feel a deeper sense of calling to pray for, give to, or go into mission service. This is part of our shared vision with our OM colleagues on land, as well as the Comibam network of mission agencies. The initiative to raise up 2,000 global workers from Latin America has met with an overwhelming response. We give thanks that more than 13,000 people are interested in serving God overseas.
So this is just the power of working together. So I think that's the beauty of the work that we have seen through the ship's visit, just uniting and working in collaboration to reach those that have never heard about Jesus.
Each year, as our vessel undergoes annual maintenance, non-technical crew members have the opportunity to join a different ministry project. In 2019, we pioneered placements to communities least reached by the gospel in Europe and Asia.
Some that have gone on teams around the world, some that have been in places exposed to communities and cities that have no known believers, informs their message now. And I think through that experience, they are much more clear on what the mission is and how they're able to communicate to the church of the great need in the world, and that we can't be okay with only doorstep mission, but we need to think beyond that.
The ship's crew was embraced by our Latino brothers and sisters as we shared the reality, the urgency for more workers to share the good news in the darkest places. God put it on our hearts too.
Highlight for me to see the cultural shift that happened on board the ship. That as we mobilize our local churches and Christians into missions, our crew and staff are excited about the opportunities that we have among the least reached, and they want to join in mission after their time on board the ship.
Each day, we have seen God at work as lives are touched through interaction with the ship and her crew. In Punta Arenas, Chile, near to where our first vessel, Logos, ran aground in 1988, we were amazed to realize the legacy of such an event. From naval personnel who saw something different in the crew they rescued, to the kindness of strangers who cared for the volunteers left with nothing. Those bonds are still strong, and God is still speaking through that story. In Rosario, Argentina, thousands united in a citywide event to raise their voices and pray for those who have yet to hear the message of hope and forgiveness. On the ship, hard-hitting dramatizations of the persecution Christians are facing around the world move many to commit to daily prayer on their behalf, or mobilize more to play a more intentional part in the Great Commission. Latin American alumni who had served on each of OM's 4 vessels reunited in Buenos Aires, Argentina. They were encouraged to see the ship ministry today and were an example to our current crew of how a season in mission can shape lives and lead to further ministry involvement. Ship teams had so many opportunities to share knowledge, help, and hope, from remote river-dwelling communities to inner-city homeless outreaches, dental clinics, school visits, building projects, and even a surfing ministry. We met people where they are and saw God at work in special ways. Logos Hope's book fair was bustling as people were eager to take home the Spanish and Portuguese literature we brought to the region. Close to 950,000 books were sold, more than 400,000 of them on Christian topics. Almost 70,000 Bibles were bought, and 375,000 portions of free gospel literature and New Testaments were given to the people we encountered. As we depart from this continent, we give thanks for the work God is continuing to do in each of the ports we visited. Next, Logos Hope is calling in some Caribbean islands, following up on work started there in 2017 and encouraging our partners in mission mobilization. As we prepare to cross the Atlantic for a landmark return to Europe after 10 years, we are excited to collaborate for even greater impact.
The Logos Hope visit is going to be a significant catalyst to draw people together, to work together in order to accomplish something far more significant than they could do as an individual church, as an individual denomination, or even a mission agency.
2020 will also mark the 50th anniversary of the ship ministry. We praise God for His faithfulness and thank you for your partnership. for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea.
Wonderful. We are actually have now a live link with the Logos Hope, and it's great to see Uncle Randy. Randy, good to see you, always smiling. Don't know nothing else. I don't know where your book is with the yellow pages. That's kind of what is part of your outfit usually as well. But yeah, great and wonderful to see you. And of course, Randy is there with the whole community, actually part of this live stream as well. I don't know if it's technically possible that we see the crowd as well. We would love to say the crowd and say a big hello to you. Great to see you all.
There it is. Everybody wave. There
would
you
love
go.
to sit
Good.
with you
Good.
in the Logos Lounge, but of course we are a little bit further away, but it's good to see you guys getting up a little bit early in the morning to be part of this link. So wonderful to see you all. Randy, you have been part of the whole journey, really, being part of the outfit phase, looking after the journey of life and a number of other things, being part of this first couple of months of ministry. Then you left the ship, you were with the ship's team in Florence, moving books and doing other things, and then came back to the Logos Hope to take on directorship. And little did you know, the moment where you said yes, that you will become director, that your directorship is very different to what you expected. You became director, and after that, basically pretty much after that, the world decided to come to a stop where things are different. The pandemic hit, and the ship was highly impacted by that, of course, the community and the ministry. How was that? How did you, as a person, as director, experience that? How did you, as a whole community, experience these last 1.5 years where things have been so different?
Yeah, well, thank you, John and Irene and everyone who's listening in this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are in the world. It is great to be part of this, and it's emotional for me to just kind of be watching, listening to the testimony stories and videos and so forth. But yeah, John, that's a great question. I think all of us have a unique answer. We kind of remember the moment when the world changed and we went into a time of a world pandemic. Of course, living on a ship is even a greater challenge because we went actually in lockdown. And interestingly, Kim and I, who were in a meeting in the States, I came back to the ship immediately. She went to assist her parents in need, some medical needs, and she was just going to come a few days later. But then the airline shut down, and we were separated for the first 5.5 months. So that's a very personal story. But on board, it was also very unique because suddenly the doors were closed and book fair was not open, and the iCafe and all the ministry that we had known for many years was just came to a halt. And I remember those first 122 days, and I always think to myself, Winston Churchill once said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste." And we did not do that. We pivoted as a ship's ministry. We started what we called building together in the Spirit, and we started moving crew members into different departments, working engine. Worked in the galley, and the galley worked with the angels, and the angels worked in the deck, and so on and so forth. So we made lemonade out of lemons, it's sometimes said, and that was a precious time on board because everything did change, but we saw God work in a very, very unique way. I just would quickly say, if you do a study on people who are held against their will, kind of in a sense, not that we weren't, but in a sense we were, you find out people that were actually thought they would get out by their birthday or by Christmas or by their anniversary, and it didn't happen. They didn't do so well. But for the people that went a day at a time, literally enjoyed the joy of the Lord in their life, day by day by day, it just went day by day, they're the ones that make it and made it. And the scripture says that. Just make it a great day. Don't worry about tomorrow. So yeah, many, many stories as a result of that. But here we are as a vibrant community of Jesus followers, and praising God for it.
And then, Randy, finally, you could open the book fair again, and things started slowly to happen. How did then the ministry look like the change from Latin America to the Caribbean after the lockdown?
Yeah, well, we started taking baby steps. We went to a few island countries and actually did some, what we would call some holistic ministry. We got involved in hurricane and volcano relief in 2 different countries, in Bahamas and St. Vincent. In fact, maybe some of you saw the stories, saw the photos of being alongside in St. Vincent and Lucifré. The volcano erupted literally as I'm standing on the quayside. This big plume. Oh, it was a good 20 miles away. We weren't in danger, but there it was. It happened as we were on the quayside. So we were able to do some of that, and then also started moving to other countries and started opening the book fair. And even over the last 3 ports, even this week, we made it. We made a record 2 days ago. We had 909 people on board in one day. So that was amazing.
Great.
There's the clap. So we have been able to move forward in that regard, yes. Opening book, I think in our last port, we had 101 teams went on shore, church teams and other opportunities. So we are inching forward.
Yes, and we are following you and praying with you as well and excited for the opportunities that you have. Being with Randy together a couple of years, the typical question is what happened. You can't believe what happened today. And Randy would have a story, and I don't know how many you won't believe what happened today story you have. You would be another person that definitely needs to write books or a series of books with all these stories. Tell us one of your favorite impact story of the last couple of months.
Yeah, thank you. No, as I was watching the videos, literally the Lord allowed Kim and I to be in every one of those ports of the videos shown, and it's just it's a bit emotional when we know and see what happened in transformation. But my story is actually, I would say, my story for the year is. I like to go on the bridge when we're sailing. I just like to go up there late at night and look at the screens and so forth. And one night I went up there. We had just leaving Abaco, Bahamas. We were on our way to St. Vincent. And I walked over to the radar screen with the commander in charge, whoever the captain, I'm not sure who it was. But we opened up that radar screen up to like 100 miles, whatever. And on that screen, you can see other ships that are in the region. And as we looked at that radar screen, we start pointing out all the cruise ships. Like there's a Disney ship, and there's the Royal Caribbean ship, and there's a Freedom of the Seas. And there were dozens, literally dozens of cruise ships that were just adrift. They weren't sailing. They were ships going nowhere. They're just sitting adrift for months and months and months. These ships would go ashore, get fuel, get food, and they would go back out adrift. They weren't functioning. But here we were, the Logos Hope, probably one of the few passenger ships that were actually able to continue to sail. There we were sailing right through on that radar screen, right through all those other ships. And that was a moment for me when I really sensed God say to me, like, I see you, I know you, I have a plan for you, and I'm going to keep the ship sailing. And I will never forget that. And I wish I'd taken actually a picture of that moment, because it was a confirmation to all of us on board. I shared with Ship's company that God has allowed the ship to remain open in the midst of a world pandemic, and to actually be salt and light, and to be a vibrant community to wherever He took us at that moment. So that's just one of many stories, but one that'll never be forgotten.
Wow, this is really powerful, Randy. And for sure, God is with the ministry, right? We wouldn't celebrate 50 years if God wouldn't be in the midst of it. But now, Randy, you're preparing to sail across the Atlantic and to Africa. Can you just tell us, what do you do? How do you prepare the community from the Caribbean to sail across, and then Sierra Leone? What is your plans? How does that look like?
Well, Irene, I don't know how many hours I have to answer that question, but I'll try to make it as quick as possible. First of all, we are sailing, God willing, tomorrow evening. We plan to leave here from St. Lucia and make our way. We'll do a technical stop in Barbados, pick up some fuel, a couple containers we need, and then make our way to Sierra Leone, West Africa. And of course, our deck and engine crew have already been working in that, preparing that, and as far as the ship's company as well. Now, mind you, many of our ship's company have never actually seen the ship open as many of you on this screen are watching. They've not seen long lines and, the Hope Theater open and large conferences in this room. It hasn't happened. So we have a fairly steep learning curve to prepare ourselves for that, and not only that, but going to another continent. It's a very different culture than what we're used to. But I can assure you that I have a room full of very excited crew members. They're ready to learn, to embrace, to partner, all of that, and that's what we'll be doing. We have actually Colin Phelps has joined us for the sail from OM Africa. We're partnering with OM Africa, and together we seek to really just step our feet on that soil and just to bring the love of Christ into the life of these people, to mobilize and to serve together. So that's really kind of our plan. Yeah, there is some intensive training, kind of planning to do a lot of church teams. So we're working through that. So a lot is happening, and I feel very confident. In fact, you would be so blessed if you could meet these crew members. I'm just so proud of every one of them. It's really exciting what God has ahead for us, and we are ready to sail, I can tell you that.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank you, Randy,
and the crew.
Yeah, thank you, Randy, and the crew for being with us. Thank you, Randy, for your leadership in these past months as well in these coming months. We follow, of course, many on the screen follow very closely the Locust Hope ministry. So we pray for you and with you as you set sail across the Atlantic, and for the ministry coming to Africa in the weeks, months, and years ahead of you. Many blessings, and thank you very much to all of you. I say goodbye to Locust Hope and zoom in here again to my right.
Bye.
Where we have Seelan.
Bye. Okay, wave.
Oh yeah, wave. Bye, Locust Hope. Bon voyage.
Bon voyage. Thank you.
Seelan and I actually just returned from Africa. We were this week in Kenya for some meetings, and now we talk about Africa with the Locust Hope going to Africa. Seelan, what are you excited about? What do you see with the Locust Hope moving towards Africa?
Yeah, I think as Randy has said, whenever the ship, and he has been there several times, whenever the ship had visited Africa, there was always a lot of vibrancy, color, dance, music, etc. that the crew members get to experience, and we get to learn from the African church. But I think as we think about going to Africa this time, I think one of the key differences for us is that we are working in partnership to go and learn what God is doing in that nation, and particularly in that nations rather, particularly in raising awareness of people towards areas of the world that we are not clearly seeing the visible move of God in communities. And I refer particularly to the Sahel region, that 150 million people, very few of them would have the understanding of who Jesus is and what he has done for them. So as we go to West Africa, our desire is working in partnership with OM in Africa and many like-minded organizations to mobilize the church, not to lift their eyes towards their church, their nation, or the ship per se, but to lift their eyes towards areas of the world in the Sahel, just next door to them. That today millions of people live and are born, they live, they die, and would never have the opportunity to know who Jesus is in a way that they can understand in their heart language. And so our desire is to see a movement of God's people through the catalyst of the Logos Hope and the community on board as they live their life following Jesus. They are not super spiritual saints. They talk about ordinary people loving Jesus, wanting to serve him and follow him, but to live out the kingdom of God wherever they are. We want to see many more people catch this vision to go and do this in the Sahel region.
Thank you. And of course, so the Logos Hope is coming to Africa. You want to give us any snapshot more as you, not only Sahel, but what do you see?
I think of course West Africa, we hope to be there from around the middle of November. until February or so, end of February, March, West Africa. And then we will sail north towards the Mediterranean and spend some time in the Mediterranean region, because our heart is really that the ship is seen as a catalyst, that we are actively wanting to see 1 million churches mobilized. We're actively wanting to see 1 million people praying persistently for communities that are not experiencing the love of Jesus or the life of Jesus in their midst today. And in partnership, our desire is to see 1 million people go be the hands and feet of Jesus in these communities. And we are convinced that it starts with really being a disciple of Jesus. That is to be present, love God, love your neighbor, do good work wherever you are, and teach others to do likewise.
Thank you.
And there is actually an exciting thing happening when we arrive in Africa, in Sierra Leone. There are about 40 Africans. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I think, and this is part of the partnership with OM in Africa, that they have, of course, heard of our need, that we don't have all the crew on board due to the pandemic, due to travel. It's not straightforward for people to come. We also, really grateful that nearly 80 people has just joined the ship. That in itself is a miracle in our current context. But in partnership with OM Africa, we will have, I believe, just over 40 Africans come and serve with us, brothers and sisters from all around the continent, sub-Saharan Africa, that would come and serve with us for 3 months to a year, in which we learn from and we're part of equipping and hopefully make a significant impact in there. So we're very excited at that possibility.
Wonderful.
Talking about this possibility for these African brothers and sisters who join the Logos Hope, I think it's as well a blessing for the Logos Hope community. All of us that lived on board know how wonderful it is to have people from various backgrounds. Now, many of you know that finances can be a slight challenge. And I just want to give you here an opportunity. We haven't given you much opportunities, verbalize them in these last couple of live streams. But just as you're watching that and think of these Africans going on board the ship, we are looking for finances actually to support these 40 Africans that will join the Logos Hope. So we'll have the opportunity via OM Ships or via your national OM field with this National Worker Fund to specifically support Africans on board Logos Hope for their ministry and the impact that this will have on the community of the ministry of the Logos Hope, but as well on their individual life. So if you get excited about that, I warmly invite you to be part of that and support Africans on board Logos Hope.
And we thank you very much for your interest, for your partnership with us. And if you want to continue to be engaged, all the 50-year anniversary from the Logos, the Logos 2, the Doulos and Logos Hope video clips will be on our link, so you can go and revisit and watch that. And of course, we are looking forward to see you maybe on board somewhere or contact us and stay engaged with us. Thank you so much for your interest, and may God bless you.
So thank you for being with us, for joining us this morning, this evening, this afternoon, whatever it is video, or if you watch it later, whatever time it is anyway. God bless you, and we want to close this live stream today with a review of the ports that the Logos Hope has visited over these last 12 years by now, and they are now in chronological order. Logos Hope review. God bless you, and bye.
Bye-bye.